This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. If you guys don't mind, we're gonna wait for a few more people to pop in here to get started. But I'm gonna do my PSAs real quickly. Want to say hello to Rumble over there. Everybody over on Rumble, hello. You guys don't have the ability to raise your hand and request a mic. So if you have a question for Rubberduck or myself, feel free to write it in the comment box below. Also, to everybody, I always tell my audience: be careful who you listen to, who you follow, what you're putting in your mind, because it's wild out there, guys. A lot of people are confused who to
That's
follow.
today's Delta, by the way, that post.
What post?
Watch who you follow.
Oh, okay. Anyway, we'll get into that here in a little bit. So, but yeah, everybody, be careful who you listen to, what you're putting in your mind, because as we all know, your mind is a powerful thing, and we're all in it here for the truth. But there are so many out there that are spreading the hate, the division, all that stuff. So everybody, just be careful who you're listening to, because we are going to start seeing, and we already are seeing some of the people that maybe all of us have followed and shared some of their posts at one point or another go by the wayside. They're getting called out, and they're showing their true colors. I always say the more they speak, the more they show their true colors, expose themselves, right? So just be careful, guys. Also, too, we are being listened to the Revival of America in over 100 countries. So if you missed the live here and you want to listen to the replay, you can follow the podcast on the podcast hosts, which are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. You can also follow the social medias, because I post my social medias. I post all the shows on those as well. And those are Jenny Dreed Facebook, at Jenny_Dreed X, at JJreed Rumble, at JJreed True Social, at JJreed Instagram, The Revival of America over on Telegram, and The Revival of America over on YouTube. There is a lot going on, everybody. As you know, it's been my birthday week, so I've taken a little bit of time off, so bear with me. I'm going to encourage the audience to ask some questions, because there is so much going on. A lot of people trying to figure out what is going on. Because as we know, there's a lot of enjoy the show. Let's just say that. Grab your popcorn. And I know some people hate that, but at the end of the day, that's really that's what it is. So Rubber Duck, I'm gonna have him go into a lot of it. If you're not following Rubber Duck, please do. He is really on fire right now, kind of decoding. He is that guy that decodes the Q posts, and he's very good at it. I believe in Q, but I'm not that person who goes and decodes all that stuff, right? That's just not my lane, but I do believe in it, and that this is a military operation. And again, everybody, that's the key word, operation. Once you understand that this is an operation, you'll understand why we're going through what we're going through, why it had to be this way, and so on and so forth. So without any further ado, as Mr. SG and on always says, I want to introduce to you guys Rubber Duck. For those of you that don't know him, I know many of you do. So what's up, my friend? You
Hey,
are
what's
on
up, Jenny?
fire.
Happy birthday, honey.
Thank you, sweetie. It's been a blessing. I have great family and great friends. So yeah, it's been a good time. But also too, sometimes, as I tell my audience, you got to take a break from some of this stuff. But when you do, man, so much is happening, and it's happening so fast. You gotta catch up real quickly. So I know you are on fire. I'm watching your posts, and you are putting a lot of great stuff out there, decoding it from the White House corresponding dinner that we watched unfold on Saturday. Now we've got the king and the queen here in town, and I don't know if you noticed it or not, but Trump had the military dress up in the Confederate, not the Confederate, but the it was it Continental Army gear. Basically to show the Brits and the king and the queen that they no longer rule us. So I don't know. Let's roll with it. Let's have
He
fun.
ceremoniously arrested the king for burning down the White House. I
I
mean,
love it. And
that
and
was the
this
show. I mean, that was like the mini play that that they were doing. That's why you had all the people dressed up and the joke and the bell. Of course, the bell is
yeah,
is a wink and a nod to us. So that's pretty cool.
I love it. So see, this is what I say, you guys. Our great president is telling us to our faces. He's like really the master troll, and he's really kind of smearing it in our faces. That I mean, he can't come out and tell you exactly, right? But he's telling us very cryptically, and I absolutely love it. So Robert Dick, why don't you start us with, let's see, from what happened Saturday, lead us on up to what's going on with the king and the queen here in DC. I think they're here until the 30th, but yeah, let's talk about it because it's all happening so fast.
Yeah, and a lot of it that they're showing to us is symbolic. You know, we're the first. Remember, the first thing that we had to, I mean, not decode really, which was just pay attention and notice, was the symbolism. You know, these people, when you get to a certain point, you know, they really don't use words in conversation, you know, to communicate their thoughts and feelings, because they surround themselves and they speak and you know they act out, you know, with symbolism. And that's why a lot of everything that's happening now with the king here, you know, it's important, you know what I mean? And the guy had a set of balls on him to level the couple of little jokes that he did. But I mean, we get it. You know, we understand, and you have all the people talking about England and the city of London, and you know, we know that's one of the three power centers, you know, of the city of three states, which is the three sovereign nations of Washington D.C., which was the muscle and the military force of the cabal, and then you had the city of London, which represented their power center, you know, where they would make up and create, you know, and adjust daily the value of money. And then you had the deception, the psyop, the you know the other part of it, which is the Vatican. And it all starts with you know get everyone hooked on the religion of choice, let them know that there's a few others we don't like, you know, and they don't like us. So let's put it all out there. Let's cram them all in one little part of the world over there in Israel and not let them step on each other's, you know, land where their source is. So that way we could just constantly battle. And that all was created by England and by a king, you know. And I think that by, you know, the little quip that got out, we all knew that the presidents were somehow interrelated at some point, but they, you know, his great 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 grandfather, King George, was, you know, some in some way a blood relative of Trump's family, his father's side of the family. You know, and one thing that Trump failed to mention too is his what do you call it? Um, his one mother was his mother's name was Mary. He, if you notice, he didn't mention his father's last name. You know, his father's last name was Christ. So I thought that was interesting too. Yeah, well, again, this is it's all symbolic, is all it's all words, you know what I mean? It is what you think it is. It's not very, you know what I mean? Not everything is to be taken so literal. You know, what you're seeing, a lot of it is symbolic, and the idea being, you know, if you don't learn the symbolism that these people speak in, then you know you'll have a difficult time understanding and articulating, you know, some of what you're going to see, the changes in real life that are happening and have been happening very slowly but happening. And when I mean happening, I don't mean if you have dead grass in your backyard that it's going to turn fucking green. You know, that's not what this thing is about. It's more of a unification of consciousness, you know what I mean, where you know where we used to, you know, be a species, or were meant to be, you know, a species of humans, you know, with hope and promise. You know what I mean? We're inherently good people. We're not born as a violent people, you know, and we've come to understand that a lot of what we have come over the years and generations to think has been wrong with our society really had nothing to do with us. You know, everything can be traced back to, you know, certain parts of our living timeline that these people have penetrated, you know, and
So
penetrated at the top.
okay, so real quickly, so going back, so not to be taken so literally, right? So I always say to my audience, and I know you've said it many times as well, things aren't always as they appear to be. So that's safe to say when people hear that out there, that's basically what we're saying. Like things aren't always as they seem, correct?
Well, it's not that it's not always what they seem. I mean, what you're looking at and consuming, you know, certainly could have multiple meanings. You know, I mean, it's as simple as
Correct.
like the word bat, baseball bat. It could mean a piece of wood that you hit a ball with, or it could mean a bat where they said the COVID came from. So, I mean,
Right.
in the very real world, you know, words have two meanings, and you know, that's how, you know, in poetry, in song, you know, in art, you know, everything has two meanings, you know. And we didn't create art, they created art, you know, so they can, you know, hide their perversions and try to normalize what how they see the world, you know. And again, that's part of their structure, part of their veil, you know, that they kind of lowered over us over the years to make it feel like this was all what we're about and what we're here for and what we're supposed to do, you know, is try to become like them. Oh, let's let's be a singer and a musician. Let's be a professional sports athlete. Let's go be a big CEO, which is nothing more than like miniature pyramid structures and scams, right? So first we have to open up our eyes and see it. And the funny thing is, like, those couple of things that I just said are so arbitrary that most of us have all felt that before. We've all complained about professional sports and entertainment, how much money they make versus how much the poor man makes. So it's not like we haven't seen it, but nobody has ever seen and understood the symbolism. Nobody's ever sat across the chair from them after them saying that and say, yeah, why is that? Why don't we talk about that? Let's talk about the geopolitics of that. Let's talk about the biblical references in that. Let's talk about the societal references of that. Blah, 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 blah. All that existential bullshit talk, right? When the truth is, you got to wake up a little bit and say, hey, you see this here? Yeah. What does this mean to you? Well, this is what they're telling me. All right. So that's the only way that you see it. So when you consume and interact with your television, you're interacting with a flat black screen. You're not interacting with real people. It's, and if you don't believe me, go and try to touch the people that you see on your phone or on your computers or TVs. They're not real. It's a broadcast. So you have to take it for what it is. Oh, what do you mean, Rubberduck? Well, it could be fake. It could be staged. It could be part of a narrative. Oh, who would do that? Who would do something like that? Well, hopefully you don't need me to mention something as obvious as that, anymore. Clearly most of our lives here as we're sitting has been staged, through these flat black screens. Whether it's making up news or documentaries or TV shows or commercials, whatever it is that keeps our, televisions on 24/7. I know we don't, do that anymore, but go to your grandparents' house or your parents' house or whatever, people that are still stuck in the matrix. That the life that they live in, and there's more of them than there are of us. But they all have one or two of us, rolling around their lives somewhere, and we're going to come in, useful, at some point. We're going to be the useful idiots, except, we'll be the useful anons, and so we watch things and see things differently. So when I watch the television, I see it for what it is, but I also know that no matter what channel I put on, what station, or, whose homepage I watch on the computer, internet, or on my phone, everything is being produced, scripted, produced, managed, and broadcast. Even this very space right here with me and Jenny, you know what I mean? We don't have a script, but we both have an idea of what we want to talk about. We both have an idea of what y'all want to hear, and so we're not serving your needs. We just know what we're going to come out with, and we know what we're going to talk about. And, we're assuming that, many folks are going to come on in and kind of understand and, be able to catch up and play along. And those that don't right now, they'll either A, show up next time and get it, or they'll get in the comments and get it, or they're going to interact with other people in this space and get it. But when Jenny says things are not always what they seem, it doesn't always mean that it's something else. You know what I mean? It sometimes it means, yeah, but you know, they created these screens so that they could message people. And when I say message, I mean, think about the marketing, advertising, and public relations industry. It's all fake facade. It's all, how do they take somebody like Mr. Beast, a pimple-headed little, kid who was probably controlled from birth, right? How do they bring that kid up to be like a super god amongst his peers? You know what I mean? So clearly it's staged, clearly it's scripted, clearly it's not organic. So I guess the point being, understand that nothing that you see on the television, at least for the last 10 years, certainly for a lot more than that, for very specific reasons, has not been organic. And it's been for the purposes of not just, our entertainment, but, our distraction, and also to plant different types of narrative seeds and ideas into our minds, so that when shit does happen, we don't drop dead of mass heart attacks. That's why they put all that shit, the Simpsons with the Kobe Bryant and the Simpsons predicting 9/11 and all these things that we think that they're predicting. And then when they happen in real life, we say, oh my God, the Illuminati is magic. And it's not that. It's they just happen to have the resources, and the insanity to carry this shit out in real life, and they have the ability and the resources to hide it and to deceive us, whether it's with, some sort of, vibrational energy that come out of these 5G towers. Who the fuck knows, positive or negative, right? But they have all of these things because they have more information that they have access to about how our bodies work and interact with nature and interact with electricity and things like that. So there's a lot of shit that we don't know, and they do. We have ideas about it. We've all read about Tesla and all the other things and all of that. So we know it's out there. Just like we know we really went to the moon, but sucks. We lost the technology, couldn't do it anymore. So now they're showing us cartoon footage of going around the moon and shit. Why are they doing that? Well, you tell me. It's because you don't know. No, that's because nobody knows. We have to talk about it. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. I may be wrong, and I'm wrong a lot, but I'm not lying. Having conversation, taking a side, understanding that if you're proven wrong, another side might be better. That's not flip-flopping. That's doing the best you can with what you have and staying ahead of, whatever might be next and not willing to be surprised by it. And that's the reason I interpret the television and all of this media, mass media, I interpret it all as messaging, as coded messaging. Some of it's for you, some of it's for me, some of it's for this guy, because I was an executive in the marketing, advertising, and public relations industry in the early 90s, throughout the mid 90s. So I know what they go after, how they target. And that's just for products, to sell on the TV and in the newspaper and internet and stuff like that. So I know how to create things that might not perform as they were intended when they were created, but I could surround it with all of the media I want, and which is a package, and I could serve that package to you, and you buy it just because of the package, and I will have been a successful marketing and advertising executive, right? Because that was Mad Men, that was that TV show that was on forever, that was popular about marketing in the 80s and 90s. So when you think about it, it's a CIA op. It's
well,
that's what it is.
And it's pretty interesting how, they tell us within our movies, songs, whatever it is, right? A lot of things that are coming out right now about this shooting that happened over the weekend, how it ties to In the Line of Fire. That movie kind of like depicts the entire
One of my all-time
situation.
favorite movies.
And now they're talking about the Beekeeper movie. The White House just actually put out a meme of basically with Jason Statham, like the advertisement, of him with all the bees, of Trump with all the bees. It's mind blowing how it's so on our faces. But if you don't know, you don't know, right? I guess right now.
What was the
for
Playboy
me,
Mansion? What was the guy that ran the Playboy Mansion? What do they call that? A huge what?
Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, Hugh Hefner and his
Honeypot?
Playboy Mansion. What was that? It was nothing but a huge. What kind of operation?
Honeypot.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the White House?
Same thing.
So that's, honeypot doesn't just mean girls, honeypot means honeypot. That means that,
Yeah.
Hey guys, you want some blackmail? Come on in. We got us a honeypot. That's what that is.
Boy.
You want some honey? We got it in the pot. You Winnie the Pooh, you come on. That's literally what it is, because don't forget this story. How long can we sit here and talk about the stories about the White House and underneath the White House and what really happened there? And those articles from the 80s and 90s, early 80s, when Reagan's White House through George Bush, they found out he was inviting, young boys to go traipsing around the White House at night. Just weird, stupid shit, Oh, do you think that's a stupid story? So who was doing cocaine during the Biden administration and left it in there? Who was butt banging somebody else in the House chamber, in Congress and filmed it? It's not us.
That was wild.
It's not us. So what they're saying, they're trying to push the limits of everyone's belief, everyone's understanding of what really evil humans are capable of, as far as the perversions and stuff. When you're willing to do stuff like this, you're willing to do anything to children. And we all have to get there, and I can see why they're doing it this way. It can't be one focus all the way to the end. Here's how it started with the kids, and here's how it did. They'll find another way to do that. But, if we're headed towards, a one world unification, and if that's going to be done through a negative emotion, which is, are you kidding me? This is what they did to the children. They were right. Where do they live? Let's go. So we can't have that. Number one, they're already dead because they knew we'd do that. And number two, there wouldn't be anybody there if we did that. So you figure it can't be rolled out like that. So that's why they're doing it this way. So I submitted to this, to the show. We're watching a movie a long time ago. And when I say submitted, I mean mentally and emotionally. It doesn't change anything I do here in the real world. It's just how I perceive, how I interact with these flat black screens, with the
Yeah,
television.
yeah, it's the way you see things, just with different eyes,
Yeah,
right? Like
you see it one way,
I'll
I see it another.
yeah,
We may overlap in some places and we may miss, but that's why, when we do spaces like this, what are we doing? We're interacting with a flat black screen, but we just know that us here, not that we're safe, but we kind of know what to expect here because it's you, because it's me, and we see who's here in the room. So there's a degree of an expectation when you come in here with us. And that's why when people come in and they're brought up on the stage and then all of a sudden they're running the room as an operation, that never happens when you and I are up here. You know what I mean? Because number one, who would bring them up? Number two, what would they say when they came up? And how long would that last? So it's a different expectation. And we're so that way. That being said, okay, let's draw the line in the sand there. So that way, when you go into another space, it's not that you have ignorant hosts or anything like that. They haven't gone through what I've gone through. They've had their own experiences. They're learning their own way. I'm not going to go in and sit there and scold people for how. No, we all have to learn the lesson. You remember Jenny way back in Patriot Spaces early on? Turtle's here, he knows.
yeah.
And we have step people on a nightly basis. In fact, we would be bored if nobody came in to fuck with us. And all we were trying to do is figure shit out and say, okay, wait a minute. We know what's happening. No, whoa, whoa, wait. We think we know what's happening. It's like we were working shit out in real time, which to me is honest, vulnerable, and to me, authentic, because it welcomes everyone into the conversation. So when you get people that come in and we call them shills, operators, you know what I mean? These are people that they'll follow you, they'll play along with you, they'll show up as listeners to your spaces for about, 2 to 6 weeks, but then they'll,
And they overtake the mic.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
And they come out of
Yes,
nowhere.
thank you. You know what I mean? Some of them show up as retards, some of them show up as, they anything.
I mean, I could sit here and talk like this and I'll tell you, if I was crazy enough or if you paid me enough, I would sit here and talk like a retard the whole time and nobody would ever know.
You see? So I mean, there's literally people who do that for performative reasons. So it is what it is. And I'm a normal person and I just did it. What if I were a loser or an evil person or an agenda or just wanted to get paid and I had 100,000 followers? You don't think I'd be fucking operating? I would be the best they had, like I try to be the best they have as an anon. There's people that go the other way.
Agreed, 100%. So, okay, I just got your message, Rubberduck. So he's got an hour today, everybody. Typically, we do 90 minutes with Rubberduck, or if it goes over, that's cool. But if you guys have questions here on X, please raise your hand and I will unmute your mic. Dr. James and Turtle, I did send you guys a mic. Over on Rumble, if you guys have a question, please write it in the comment area. And then also, too, if you guys don't mind reposting the space so we can get more people in here, because Rubberduck, I call it the series because he is a series of information, great information. And it's just, and a lot of people, do the whole Q thing, right? And a lot of it's tying together. So if you're not that person that's ever followed it or familiar with it, listen to Rubberduck. He ties it all together. It's coming to fruition. It makes more sense now than maybe a lot of people in the beginning were, because so many go, oh, it's gonna happen now. It's gonna happen now. Oh no, it didn't happen. You know what I mean? So, but we're in the thick of it right now, everybody. So don't be afraid to ask a question. We are here for you. There is no stupid question. So hopefully myself or probably more than likely Rubberduck will have the answer for you. So
Well, here's another one as an example. You asked earlier, you mentioned earlier, and I was trying to find it about, the operation, enjoy the show or watching a movie. Like, what does that mean? It sounds so silly. It doesn't even sound like something that can occur in real life, blah, blah, blah. How is it a military operation? Like Rubber Duck, how can you say in one side of your mouth it's, it's a scripted movie produced by Hollywood and blah, 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 and then on the other side of your mouth, you know what I mean? You talk about a military operation, like how come they're not wearing uniforms and where are the soldiers? So today's Delta was simply put, talked a little bit about Counterinsurgency, and this is a little bit about what Mike General Flynn's books, as far as fifth generation 5G warfare and irregular warfare, and it all comes down to counterinsurgency. So January 13th, 2009, what Q posted today, actually it wasn't today, it was 2018, so it was like, what, 6, 7, so 8 years ago today, Q posted the guide for the government, United States Government Counterinsurgency Guide, written January 13, 2009. So Q posted this, and the message to Anons from Q to us was, read this slowly and carefully. Knowledge is power. And this is, just a small excerpt from this manual. And it says, irregular warfare is the far more varied than conventional conflict. Hence, the importance of an intellectual framework that is coherent enough to provide guidance and flexible enough to adapt to circumstances. Kind of like a movie, think about that. Irregular warfare is far more varied than conventional conflict. Hence, the importance of an intellectual framework that is coherent enough to provide guidance and flexible enough to adapt to circumstances. So if you're watching a movie or a show, or let's say a reality show on TV, doesn't that sound like the type of script that they would have? If they were to write a script, not for a TV show that's pre-recorded with canned laughter and all that stuff, talking about a live event, like a reality talk show. So I'll say it one more time. So when I say this to you, think about a reality TV show. Irregular warfare is more varied than conventional conflict. Hence, the importance of an intellectual framework, script, production, that is coherent enough to provide guidance and flexible enough to adapt to circumstances. Number one. Number two, American counterinsurgency practice rests on a number of assumptions: that the decisive effort is rarely military, although security is the essential prerequisite for success; that our efforts must be directed to the creation of local and national governmental structures that will serve their populations, and over time, replace the efforts of foreign partners; that superior knowledge, and in particular, understanding of the human terrain, is essential, and that we must have the patience to preserve in what will necessarily prove long struggles. So what I hear there is how they're explaining to us how they were going to conduct this massive counter coup that happened virtually on the internet through the 2016 election. Okay, so American counterinsurgency practice. Now remember, counterinsurgency is when you have a foreign entity on your soil. That's an insurgency. A counterinsurgency is a civilian and military alliance, organic, that goes to counter the insurgency that was created by the invasion. Okay, so I'll read it again. American counterinsurgency practice rests on a number of assumptions. It says, number one, that the decisive effort is rarely military, although security is an essential prerequisite for success. So that sounds like deputizing a bunch of actors with protection. Or in that case, maybe instead of deputizing actors, maybe they're turning deputized military or military people themselves into actors. Because isn't that what PSYOPs, divisions do? They run PSYOPs. They're actors. CIA, actors. Mossad, actors. So our efforts must be dedicated to the creation of local and national governmental structures that will serve their populations and over time replace the efforts of foreign partners. Sounds to me like somebody was planning on bringing in an organization like Doge, clearing out the cash, the foreign cash, right? Cutting that string. And at the same time, replacing the local communist governments, the local insurgencies that were taken over by the Masons and the other people that came in Minnesota, Detroit, Michigan, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to replace the whole government, but there's little places that were invaded and taken over, and we needed to go in there and replace those governments. Okay? And then you have that superior knowledge, and in particular, understanding of the human terrain is essential, and that we must have the patience to preserve and what will necessarily prove long struggles. This speaks to the 10-year, I want to say, top to bottom disclosure operation that we're here for. This tells me that they never really knew potentially how long it was going to take, when they ended the hot part of the kinetic part of this war, which had to have been sometime before 2017, because that was the promise that Trump was given. Number one, the war would be over. Number two, you would win and you wouldn't get shot and killed. Those, those were the guarantees that Trump was given, right? So, number three, insurgency, however, can and will flourish in the modern environment. The strains created by globalization, by the collapse of weak state structures, by demographic, environment, and economic pressures, by the ease of cooperation amongst insurgent groups and criminals, and by the appearance of destructive radical ideologies, all aggregate a period in which free and moderate government is at risk. So this tells me that the insurgents, these are the people, like I said, that came in at the ground level, and these people all knew where our weaknesses were as a country, different parts of our country that were more favorable to being taken over. This is what Trump really was scared about, or what we were all scared about when Trump first got in his first term, that we were being invaded. Remember? He said, well, they're all military-aged men. I don't see any women. I don't see any children. Remember the day he took over as president, right after he went to the CIA, he put out the executive order to close the border. No Muslim countries are allowed in. And then his national defense secretary at that point in time, or maybe not the national defense, but they betrayed Trump and they would not close the border. Don't know if you guys remember that. There were lots of firings early on in Trump's tenure in his 2016, before the Flynn incident even happened 30 days in. Okay, so lastly, and I'll finish this part of it with this, because Q put this in parentheses. Insurgency is the organized use of subversion and violence to seize, nullify, or challenge political control of a region. As such, it is primarily a political struggle in which both sides use armed forces to create space for their political, economic, and influential activities to be effective. Insurgency is not always conducted by a single group with a centralized military-style command structure, but may involve a complex matrix of different actors with various aims, loosely connected in dynamic and non-hierarchical networks. To be successful, insurgencies require charismatic leadership, supporters, recruits, supplies, safe havens, and funding, often from illicit activities. They only need the active support of a few enabling individuals, but the passive acquiescence of a large proportion of the contested
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
population will give a higher probability of success. This is best achieved when the political cause of the insurgency has strong appeal, manipulating religious, tribal, or local identity to exploit common societal grievances or needs. Insurgents seek to gain control of populations through a combination of persuasion, subversion, and coercion, while using guerrilla tactics to offset the strengths of government security forces. Their intent is usually to protract the struggle, exhaust the government, and win sufficient popular support to force capitulation or political accommodation. Consequently, insurgencies evolve through a series of stages, though the progression and outcomes will be different in almost every case. And that was signed by Q. And that's in my feed too. I'll put it in the purple pill, and the actual document is there from 2017 that you guys can check it out.
And we know about the capitulation tour, everybody. If you haven't seen that, you definitely need to check it out. But I also, too, want to circle it back to what we're seeing here with the Queen and the King here in town. I believe, my opinion, and I'm sure it's yours too, Rubberduck, that we're basically seeing the old guard being torn down, guys, and Trump basically saying that we won, it's over, it's done. So he has taken back the castle, which is the White House. and he's telling us, everybody, that it's over. It's done. So would like your thoughts on that, Rubber Duck, and then we'll go to you, C. Pat Fish, because I see your hand up and want to say hello to Dr. James. Go ahead,
Go
Rubber
on,
Duck.
guys. I'm good. We're all here.
Well, what are your thoughts on what I just said about?
I agree. I mean,
okay.
the systematic destruction of the old guard is what we've been seeing since Trump's latest public term. And everything that we're witnessing, if you're able to see the the symbolism side of it, when you see things that are kind of weird, or if you think that's just Trump going over the top because he's Trump, think about these uniforms and these costumes that people are putting on. A lot of this pomp and circumstance, some of it is necessary. Some of it also looks like Trump is playing a part of it, and he is. But it's all there for a reason, and that's the most important thing. And that keeps you from having to pay attention to like Trump's facial expressions all the time. The fact that it's happening means that he co-signed it.
Amen to that. So have some solace in that, everybody, because again, like I always say to my audience, Trump is telling us without directly telling us. And if you're looking for somebody really to follow first and foremost the Lord above, and then Donald Trump, because he is telling us what's going on. Go ahead, CPAT. Your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes. So, in other words, to take that what he just read a couple of different times, you tell me in the last 15 years ago, were people as much aware of the things that they're aware of now? Were they aware of the Federal Reserve, the bad vaccines? Were they aware of all of the things that we've been made aware of? People that I in my circles that I see in the 3D life are talking about things that they never ever would have been talking about 15 years ago because it wasn't in our wheelhouse. So whether it's somebody if it's the Democrats, let's call it, if they're sitting there talking about the finances, or they're talking about the medical part, or if they're talking about these things, at least it's being brought up. And I think that Trump doesn't give a crap who's bringing it up, but it's being brought up. So that is getting into the back of our minds. That's kind of like a reversed MK Ultra that has been done on us for decades and decades. So I guess my point is when in my life at 60 years old, had I, prior to 15 years ago, ever seen as much of this type of awareness in our country and within society in America and now all over the world than we've ever had to. And it was because of what Rubberduck just went through and how they decided to bring it forward, because everybody's talking about it now, or then they were never talking about it before. So I'm seeing it all over. At least they're talking about it. At least it's becoming a kitchen table conversation.
I mean, this is what, in my opinion, I mean, this always was what Q talked about with the saying, military is the only way. I mean, I never thought that we were going to have like SWAT teams and millions of like Marines on the streets battening down the hatches. I always thought, because why would they do that? If they were going to commandeer, all of the, deceptive tools of deception, including Hollywood and, all of the digital, all of the assets that they use for surveillance, why would they need to do that? Just put them in plain clothes and, put them in a mask and give them a script. I mean, that's not too hard. You know what I mean? So that's when I mean military was the only way. What I just read, what I mean, what CPAT just was talking about is what's been happening. And so you say, well, what do you mean what's been happening? And my response would be, well, what have you been watching on TV? I don't know. I mean, TV. Okay, so what have you been watching on TV? Have you just had it on one channel for 10 years, or do you flip around? Do you have anything? What else is good? Well, I watch this, and that. Okay, so what if I told you if they're all connected? What do you mean? Well, if you're watching a TV show or news or commercials or, whatever pops up on your TV, down to the signal, if you lose a signal and there's something there. What if I told you all that was scripted and military controlled? Well, no, that's not that. That's just the TV. The TV's on. Okay, so that's what you think? Yeah. Are you pretty set with that? Yeah. So basically whatever they're going to play on the television, you're going to go along with, and you trust that's what's happening, right? Yeah. Okay, you're not ready yet. That's it. That's where we're at. And the people that fall into that category that I just described, there's nothing we can do for them. How do you tell those people that everything watching is fake? You don't. How do you tell people like us? Well, you better have told them 10 years ago, because they're just as, they're in the same pool of smart people as them. And we were pretty much sleeping before 2015. So we don't have too much to be very happy about, but we woke up and we were put there for a reason, and we were chosen. They knew where we'd be, where we were. Anyway, so you choose what you want to believe. Do you want to believe that we're still waiting for the military to come and take over things? Or do you take it as a fact that, both our military and intelligence communities, on the military side, have been active for 10 years? Behind the scenes, sometimes we see them, the assassinations, we see them, when we see them in Minnesota, we see them, what they have riots, we see them, when we look at the Marines, Maradness, how long have they been activated for in our soil? We can see that, wow, since 2019, every single Marines reservist has been activated on our soil. And that order is still active today. Bullshit, Rubberduck, you're lying. Oh, really? You have any Marines reservists in your family? Yeah, it's my third cousin. Well, give him a call, shithead, and you tell me, And then you get under the reply, I'm sorry, Rubberduck, So, like I said, you could believe what you want. You don't need to believe me, because even if I don't know why anybody would, but if you understand what I'm talking about, you'll find out on your own, and then you'll believe it.
Thank you, Rubber Duck. Did you want to say anything more, CPAT?
No, if you look around, there are people that are getting the message, whether they like it or not. And a lot of people don't like the message, but they're getting it. And guess what? They're going to have to make that decision that he just talked about. You either get it or you don't. And it doesn't really matter. It's going to happen anyway.
That's right. Nothing can stop what's coming, correct?
Everything we went through, everyone else will go through. And it won't be any different. The only difference will be how much time will you have to consider, critically think about, and discern, and then react to. We've had 10 years plus in many cases. But, if you're not where we are right now, you're not stupid. You're just ignorant of what's been going on because the TV has captured you. You know what I mean? It's like Neo when he's on the computer and you hear, Neo, wake up. That scary bullshit that made our fucking hair stand up back then.
Yep.
Well, you need to go through that. I mean, if your hair hasn't stood up yet, if you haven't had that moment yet, where it's like, oh, fuck, this reality's fucked, got to go to a new timeline. If you say something weird to yourself, that means you've made it. Because what's happening on TV, it's just not believable anymore. I keep waiting for the moment where I wake up one day and everything on a flat black screen, including our apps, is animated. It looks like it was drawn by a fourth grade crayon, but everything's moving and everything's talking. And there's still going to be people that are going to be looking at it and screenshotting and sending it to me. Like, what's going on? And I'm going to be like, I don't know. It's animated. Let's see what happens next. Anyway, it's that type of deal. I guess we're going to have to get close to that, before people, and the people I'm talking about, the people that, I don't know, go into a mall. If you have a minute, and just take a walk through a mall and casually surveil what the people are doing there. I mean, they're zombified. But then you go and, if you truly stay awake and pay attention, you see what CPAP sees. And, and that's true, too. There are people waking up, asking questions. But it's going to be those people that are going to have to get with those other people in the mall and say, hey, guys, come on. We got other things to do here. That type of deal.
Time to pick a side. I mean, because nothing's going to stop what's coming. So go ahead, Dr. James. I want to say hello to Health and Wealth. And then I see Bootlegger, you requested Mike, so you can go ahead and go after Dr. James. What's up, Dr. James?
Hey, Jenny.
Hey, everybody. How you doing over there? Hi, good to see you.
You guys are retarded.
My rubber buddy. Hey, rubber buddy, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here. There's a historic moment in my life. It's the first time I've ever gotten on a space while I'm driving through the mountains. It's always at home. So, anywho, I'll probably lose signal here. You probably noticed I've been cutting in and out, Jenny. But yeah, these mountains are unforgiving for this stuff. But yeah, people are waking up. A lot of people. I'm seeing two ways of going with folks here. They're either starting to wake up and get it and being like, and so they're seeing. They're at that point where they're gonna hit the inflection point of the curve and then just boom, they're gonna realize, oh my God, it's all of it. Right. And then there's the other side of the people that are doubling and tripling down on ignorance. They're just going deep and dark on, oh no, this is all a lie. like that Congress person thing from Connecticut, whatever she, Rhode Island, whatever, purple haired dude, I don't know what it is, came up there and
It's all about the raw milk.
right, and he's like literally citing case law, and she's like, I think you're making it up. It's bullshit. He's like, you think I'm making up this case law? Yes, I think you are. It's like that's not even allowed in in Robert's rules. So I mean, how is it allowed in that? Right. And this is just preposterous. So this stuff all has to end. The people that are doubling, tripling down. So the percentages are really good because we already know that only 4 to 6% of the people are going to be irredeemable, right? But predominantly that includes them, right? Like them are the 4 to 6 people, the enemy globally. I think that it's going to be so egregious and so obvious when it's done that even the rubber buddy people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I totally see it. Jeez, they're so mean. I mean, really, it's going to be like that. Everyone from the least intelligent to the most intelligent person who's been bucking this thing are going to wake up and boom. And incidentally, too, when I was like, just before I got out of the car to go into Wally World here in the middle of nowhere, I was listening to something on the radio, and then it cut over to the emergency broadcast system, and they didn't say anything, but it wasn't on the hour, so I thought it was an interesting thing that they tested it today. So I don't know if anyone else got that, but it was tested. So, anywho, I'm just darn glad to be here. Rubberduck, it's great to see you. Jenny, good grief, this is always a phenomenal space. And I'm going to get back to driving here. And if I do lose you, it's not because I don't love y'all. So thanks for letting me up, and have a great day.
We love you too, Dr. James. Thank you for being here, sweetie. All right, go ahead, bootlegger.
Yeah, what you were saying, Rubber Duck, about the military and, people questioning whether they're around or not. I've heard, some going through the rumor mill that, starting to come out that there's 1 million or more, military personnel that's in country, doing various things. Now, a lot of the reason why you don't see them, though, let's go back to Trump's first administration when he had invoked emergency powers, right? Who took over the transportation department? The bus drivers and things like that they needed for the cities and stuff like that. That was the military. So you had military driving buses. You had military in the Department of Transportation. Because remember, Department of Transportation is across the United States were heavily, top heavy in administrative, and they were taking tons and tons and tons and tons of money from the UN, right? Being funneled in to make bike roads that make it dangerous for motorists and bicyclists, putting in ridiculous lighting, clogging up streets in the city so that box trucks with bringing in product couldn't come in and deliver. I mean, all this chaos in the cities, roundabouts, right? All that stuff. So that was one of the first. That was one of the first initiations of military coming in and functioning in a more civilian capacity, or taking over civilian duties, was in 1819. And then you carry that on over to the courts. If you've looked on any of the court schedules, there are tons and tons of sealed indictment hearings, anyway, they're scheduled on their calendars. Since when did the courts, civilian courts, since when did they have so many sealed indictments, right? So who's being indicted? We know family courts are corrupt. They've been trafficking children through, using CPS and DCYF and all that other stuff. So there's a lot of these agencies, and there's a lot of places for the military to hide and start managing the systems. So yeah, that's all I wanted to add to it. That you may not see them directly in your face in uniform, but they're somewhere, and a lot of them are in places that we don't normally go and look for anyway.
Do you want to say anything to that, Rubberduck?
No, he's right, man. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it ain't happening. And just because they ain't there, it doesn't mean that they were given a mission, to put on their military garb and, run around with their AK-47s. You know what I mean? So just like there's plainclothes cops, there's plainclothes military. You know what I mean? And the one thing that you don't want to forget about is the wizards and warlocks see everything, and they're undefeated. And that's Space Force and Special Forces. So you have Special Forces, Special Operations, which now, since 2020, are on the same authoritative par as all branches of our military. So you have the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Now you have Space Force and Special Forces, which report directly to the POTUS. So that's one important distinction too, because that's also those two branches are in full control of the Palantir technology, because that's what they used to map out the world and find everybody, and save who needed to be saved. So, hey, Jenny, I got two short songs I'd like to play that I haven't released yet. Probably won't for another week. But since we got like 10 minutes here, I figured we could take 5 minutes listening to two songs.
Yeah, real quickly, you can close us out with those, but real quickly, let's touch on this whole Comey thing. He's officially turned himself in, and then we've got Todd Blanche, or Blanchet, however you want to say it. But his accomplishments just in 2 weeks, from Somali fraudsters, mass raided, Dr. Fauci scientists arrested, indicted, Comey indicted. However, he's officially turned himself in. Act Blue under investigation, SPLC indicted, hoax or hate hoax op, John Brennan under investigation, Fannie Willis under investigation, J6, liar Cassidy Hutchinson investigation. All the above are going to prison. So this is from Benny Johnson, but I mean, Todd Blanche, although I think he is a placeholder for a more permanent individual. And I have questions about Todd Blanche, because I do believe that he has been one that's been hindering Donald Trump from moving forward with several things. But what are your thoughts on all of that, and with the Comey turning himself in? And then, yeah, you can close us out with your songs.
He's a placeholder, just like you said. I mean, if you look at the Trump administration's, the public one, his first one, and this one here, the people, the players in the administrations that have gotten quote unquote the most work done have been the fill-ins, the temporary people. I mean, the one who did the most work in Trump's first administration was Whitaker. Because remember, Jeff Sessions had to recuse himself allegedly early on. However, Chuck Grassley just confirmed yesterday that, one of Jeff Sessions' early investigations into the Clinton Foundation have now, risen to the top, where they're going to be investigated, referrals will be sent out, and we know that investigation is, it pertains specifically to the Inspector General's report that came out 11/3 of 2018. And it was that report where we first learned that there would be investigations, or I should say there were, but not yet prosecuted. And that was concerning the Wiener laptop, the Hillary Clinton and Uma Abedin crimes against children, and Haiti. Those three topics. Wiener laptop, we know Frazzle Drip's in there. Uma Abedin, crimes against children, that's Frazzle Drip. And then you have Haiti, which is where they used the HARP weapon to create a natural disaster and then sent the Red Cross in to kidnap all the children, for a very specific reason, a certain type of product that's extracted, from particularly Black children, in this case, Haitian children. Fantastically racist and evil. But, when people learn about that, you'll end racism in a day.
Yeah, that was all man manufactured as well. So, yeah. Okay, so Rubberduck, these are songs that you did, and what are you doing? You're putting them on Apple, Spotify. What are you doing? When you
Nothing. I
say
mean, I'm just
release.
I'm releasing them here, and I
Oh,
opened up.
okay.
I've never had a Instagram account before, so I created one of those. Don't know how to use it, but I just learned how to post stuff. So I have a Instagram account where I'm posting all these music videos to, which are nothing but unedited cue drops set to music, that I create. And,
I love it.
I thank Health because he's the person that inspired me and, inspired me to, get involved with this. And my creative side is always, visual and, I'm a visual person. So when the cue drops always help me to envision everything, which helped me to understand everything. So when you put the words with good music, and Health taught me also the difference. He didn't just teach me, he showed me the difference between a broadcast in 432 hertz and a broadcast in 440 and so on and so forth. So I put some of this together specifically so that people will hear the tunes and enjoy them because they range. I mean, I was always a music file. So, I go back to the 20s and 30s, Mississippi Delta blues, I mean, 80s, punk, funk, all that stuff. I'm into it, deeply
And
into
real,
it.
and real quickly with these different frequencies, guys, what we're listening to a lot of our music is somewhat demonic. The frequencies, what Rubber Duck is talking about, and what Health is doing with the music is they're bringing it into more healing because there are healing frequencies. And so that's a fact. So that's what Rubber Duck is talking about right there. Real quickly, everybody, before he plays his songs, after Rubber Duck, we will have John Baxter from Anti-Aging Medbed over on my Telegram page. We will stream it here live through Rumble as well. So if you guys want to check that out, that will be at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we will have Rick Anson from Brain IQ Health, all natural supplements and these peptides, guys. It is a game changer and what these peptides are doing and how this is going to be another area of true healing in your healing journey, guys, because we're pulling away from the you-know-who, big pharma. We're going to the all-natural remedies, therapeutics, like Donald Trump has always said, frequencies, technologies, all that stuff. So if you know somebody, or if that's you that is looking for alternative healing because you don't trust what's going on out there, I highly encourage you to check these two individuals out because they are changing lives on a daily basis. And when it comes to these peptides, everybody, you need to be super careful because you see them being pushed on Instagram, TikTok, and if they're coming from China, they are nothing but harmful peptides. What Rick Anson has is all natural. Same thing with John. You need to be very, very careful. It's coming down to a point where you can't be telling people how to dose if you're not a doctor or something like that. Not that John and Rick do, they don't, but you have a lot of these people on the TikToks and Instagrams doing this. So another area for you guys to watch out for. Be careful because peptides are going to be a huge part in our healing process here in the very near future. Well, it's happening now, guys. It's going to replace a lot of these meds out there that people are on for depression, for pain, whatever it may be. So check that out. Those two will be back to back. John's 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then Rick is 2:30 Pacific Standard Time, and then Derek Johnson, everybody, back over on Telegram. We're streaming it all through Rumble. He will be 6:30 Central Standard Time. So with that, Rubber Duck, the floor is yours. Go ahead and play your songs, and you can close us out. And Rubber Duck, everybody is here with us every Monday for the series. So come in if you missed this one next Monday, and we'll be live once again. Go ahead, Rubber Duck.
Okay, we'll start this out with a fun one. All right, and we'll let it go. 1, 2, 3.
Get the shot. I pointed directly at it 3 times. I turned and double pointed just to be clear. Did they pick up the boom, boom, boom? Something is happening. Yes, Mr. President. Anons are actively tracking. Message received. Good, that's good. You know, to be right is wrong. The cult runs the world. Fantasyland, the world is fighting back. cult. And destroying the cult. Did they get the clip? Yes. Mr. President, did they catch all the references? Yes. Mr. President, show me. Thank you, nonce. All that you know to be right is wrong. The cult runs the world. Fantasyland. The world is fighting back and destroying the cult. 20% will be made public, 80% will remain private. The world would otherwise collapse. Do you get it yet? They are afraid of you. Your reach, that you are uncontrolled, anti-narrative and free thought.
All right. So
Great
that's-
song. What post was that?
I didn't post it yet. I still have to make the video. This is, like I said, these have not
No,
been
Q
released
post.
yet.
Q post.
Oh,
Was that the Cure? Was that like the Cure influence?
Yeah, it sounded like
Yes.
a Cure. But
Yeah,
what
that's
was
it.
what Q post was that?
That was I don't have the Q drop number, but that was
Okay.
that was basically when Trump first. That was the first Q proof. In other words, the conversation where you heard them saying yes, Mr. President. That
Yeah.
was the Q team communicating with POTUS about when Trump had his rally where he first did the air cue and then pointed 3 times. You know, the boom, boom, boom. When he pointed 3 times to the person holding the small square Q sign, which they were allowed to do early on in Trump's first administration.
Great
So
job.
so the whole it's part of 2 Q posts. One came out in 2017, one came out in 2018, and basically what they did is they posted the actual conversation back and forth between the Q team and POTUS as Q plus, and they made 2 posts out of it. So that's where this song came from. And like I said, if you ever want to know, like, hey, what drop is this from, or what do these words mean, just take 2 or 3 of them in a row, copy them, and put them into any Q aggregate site like qalerts.app, and you'll find the exact post that this came from, and it'll change your life. So, all right, here's the second one. This one is called What Makes a Movie Good?
Bad actors.
Some of us come here to drop crumbs, just crumbs. President Trump is 100% insulated. Any discussion suggesting he's even a target is false. Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Fully controlled. Save and spread. President Trump will not be addressing the nation on any of these issues as people begin to be indicted and must remain neutral for pure optical reasons.
What does that mean?
To suggest this is the plan is false and should be common sense.
Hear that? It should be common sense.
Movie good.
Great actors. Great actors! Focus on military intelligence and state secrets, and why might that be used versus any 3-letter agency? What Supreme Court decision opened the door for a sitting president to activate? What must be showed? Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Fully controlled. Save and spread. Why is President Trump surrounded by generals? Again, there are a lot more good people than bad, so have faith. This was a hostile takeover from an evil, corrupt network of players and not just Democrats.
What makes a movie good?
Great actors. Great actors! Don't fool yourself into thinking Obama, Soros, Rothschilds, and the Clintons have more power present day than Trump. Operation Mockingbird. Patriots are in control. Sit back and enjoy the show.
What makes a movie good?
Great actors. Great actors! Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Fully controlled. Save and spread. Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Think about it logically. The only way is the military. Fully controlled.
Patriots are in control.
There you go.
Nice job, Rubberduck. And real quick before you go, since that talked about the military, Annie is asking, can you ask Rubberduck about the military being at the dinner where the shooting, in quotes, took place? I can't find a video of it now, but confirm they were there and it's not normal. Exposure?
Yes, the military was there in the same way that the military was there at the assassination attempt in July, where they popped out of nowhere. Personally, I think that they were the same group of actors because they didn't. It just seemed very obvious, weird, and fake. So again, I don't think the question is whether or not it was staged and fake. The question is, for what reason? Number one. Number two, was it some sort of a J6 type of deal where they needed to just distract the world while they went in and grabbed every laptop to every congressperson and senator. That's what part of the J6 operation was. Masked as a fake insurrection. So what happened last night? Everybody was startled and left. You know what I mean? So it was a distraction, but for who? For what? Was it a public test of how bad the Secret Service is? It could be that. It could be a lot of reasons. And if you think about them, once you understand and accept that it's likely staged and fake, then you could just let your mind go wild and figure out why would it be for. But if you don't understand any of this stuff, including, that song that you just heard, What Makes a Movie Good, that's the entire post of post drop number 4. So Q drop number 4 basically was that, what you just heard, word for word. So imagine yourself in the year 2017 happening across this information. Would you have turned away? You know what I mean? So that's part of it. We listened to that, and those of us that knew a little bit about history and the law and blah blah blah, we were like, wait a minute, this is people wouldn't put these words together unless, number one, they knew what they were talking about. Number two, if some of this shit was actually happening. Because there was weird shit going on right before the Trump election in 2016, if y'all remember. You know what I mean? Hostage situations, mass shootings, you know what I mean? Mexico, like all that stuff. Remember the caravans that were, all that stuff. So you have to put yourself in that mindset of back then, because we were still reeling from that. And that's when Q exploded on the scene, during Trump's full, 2017, the end of his, his first year, as president. So I'll have some of these videos, because I don't think the songs serve any good unless you have the words in them. So that's kind of what takes a little bit of time too. So I'll have this stuff out later today. I'm trying to do 2 a day until I finish the entire Q graphic. If those don't know what the Q graphic is, in 2017, Q advised us to take all of the drops that were put out there, together with all of the research we did that would accompany each individual unique drop, and put them together in a graphic, which we did, a high resolution graphic. And that if we were to have that like on a thumb drive or on our phone or even printed up and folded, that we would have it in our pocket, no matter what we saw, heard in real life or on the television or internet, we would be able to go through it and break it down in a matter of a minute or maybe 5 minutes. So it was like a reference tool. So that's what I'm producing these songs for.
Well, you're doing a great job, Rubberduck, and thank you so much for that. And I've always heard it's bad actors that make a movie great. So anyway, with that, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Come back and check us out for John Baxter with Anti-Aging MedBed over on my Telegram page. And I will be posting that here shortly. Again, that's 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Rubberduck will be back next Monday, same time, same place.
See
Unless
you, everybody.
something
Thanks for hanging out.
happens.
We'll see you next week, and I'll be around. So will Jenny.
Thanks, Rubberduck.
Thanks, Doc.
Dr.
Thanks, Sal.
James.
Bootleg Turtle. Takeaway. Love you guys.
Thank you all for being here. God bless.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.